Aerobic versus anaerobic. Your position. I'm going to leave it out there. Sometimes I just throw them up there like a bucket and let you do your thing.
No, that's a great question. And I would probably argue we look at that being almost just as important, if not more important in our sport than actual strength. So that's obviously with a pinch of salt, it's kind of here or there depending on the person.
Right.
But what we're trying to say is energy systems and cardiovascular responses are really important in MMA. So both, and yes, tick all the boxes, aerobic, anaerobic, but we go a little bit further than that with our tests. We don't only look at the three energy systems. We test through VO2. We test the glycolytic energy system and the alactic energy system. We compare them with that athlete's weight class to tell them where they are and which energy system we might need to develop further, much like the strength diagnostics. So we can then complete an even better profiling program for that athlete as an individual. On top of that, we'll also look into the data and say, all right, well, specifically with the VO2 max test, was it a cardiovascular response that let you down? Did you peak at a high heart rate, even though that's probably not where you should have been? Or did you need to stop at a lower heart rate, say in your 150s, which isn't a peak heart rate at all? Why did that happen? Well, it's probably a neuromuscular response. So that maybe needs us to look at your conditioning from a neuromuscular perspective, whether it's muscular endurance, whether it's things like sled-based training, where we're trying to actually improve the mitochondria within the muscle to help that energy distribution as well. So we go a little bit further, I guess.
Talk to our audience, and specifically the young professionals that might be listening, to why that's important, understanding what the need is of the sport by individual energy system wise.
Again, it's a deficiency, right? So the aerobic system is like the base of the pyramid.
Right.
And so your glycolytic and alactic energy systems, your anaerobic energy systems won't be as effective as regenerating their energy if the aerobic system is without its fundamental backing, I guess. That underpins it all.
It's the foundation, yeah.
The foundation. Now, even if your sport is alactic in nature, the aerobic energy system helps you to repeat those efforts as well and helps the alactic system to recover a little bit better. So in our sport, a great example of that is, say, grappling. So in grappling, some of the time you'll see them not actually move very far. So think of a GPS unit and you might want to track them. They've traveled zero distance. But they're working at 100% output.
Right.
So that's one component of it. So that's usually you're in a fairly long scenario in that grappling. Let's say you do 3 minutes. You're well and truly tapping into that aerobic energy system. But then you break, you get out of it, and now you're up striking. Now, your heart rate while you're grappling, if you're an experienced grappler, may not be through the roof. It might actually be well under control. But what have your muscles been doing that whole time? They are gassed.
Yeah.
So now you stand up, you go to put your guard up and throw strikes, and your arms are like, don't want to do any of that, please. And that's now the alactic energy system, but also coming from the muscles component as well. So this is where you got to think a little bit laterally with your conditioning.
So in a situation like that, I have someone who is deficient anaerobically, but he's a grappler.
Mm-hmm.
Not me personally.
Yeah, sure.
I'm deficient all the way around. Yeah, but so I have this athlete. He's deficient there, and he's basically a wrestler, but he's young. What do you tell him?
Well, if we've done the other tests on them as well, then often what we've found with grapplers is aerobically and glycolytically, they're really quite good.
Mm-hmm.
They're workhorses, the wrestlers particularly. So maybe they need to work on their repeat power, so their alactic energy system. So they might be working short bursts, lots of repeats. The hardest thing with those type A personality wrestlers is that they don't want to rest.
Right.
So it's about coming up with an idea. Say you would do 5 8-second maximal power output. You give them a target on the assault bike, and your whole goal is in that 6 to 8 second burst to reach a particular target of watts or power output.
Right.
And then with the alactic system you would need at least like a 1-to-4 work to rest ratio at least. And so you would do that, let's say every minute,